Peace everyone, Unmask here, and welcome back to the self-portrait live stream. Today, my goal is to completely finish the background to 100%, and so I never have to work on it again for the rest of the month. So hopefully you guys had a fantastic weekend. Welcome to Monday. My weekend was rather nice. The weather tried to be nice. It was kind of weird. Like each day, it started nice, but then it had to rain in like the late afternoon. So yeah, I had that going for me. But other than that, it was a pleasant weekend. Hello, Catrice, Cece, what's up? Lindy, Marcy, good to see all of you here. Thank you for coming by and hanging out. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to ask. My main focus, like the background already sort of looks pretty much complete, but I just need to rework the edges, and I want to do kind of like a final burnishing layer to really just make sure that it's smooth and good to go. So that's kind of today's plan. Nothing exciting about doing the background at all. It's just going to be a very slow, rather tedious task today. So the more questions you ask, the better off we will all be. So please ask away. Oh, hey there, Anne and Sneaks. Good to see both of you. My self-portrait here is really starting to shape up now that we're in the 20s, right? We're in the 20s now. So 10 technically 11 days, but 10 days left after today. Can't believe it's coming to an end. It will be nice after today to just have the entirety of the background just completely done. I might be streaming a little bit over an hour, possibly closer to 2 hours today, simply because I'm not going to rush the background just because it's the background. I think I spoke to length about the importance of a background and taking your time with it when I first started working on the background, which was day 2. It was like day 2 through 5, I think I spent working on the background. And here we are again. We've kind of gone full circle now that I've completed the background, and then I did my face and the hair, and then my arm, and then the shirt, and then I'm just kind of wrapping back around, starting with the background again, and then from there, I'll just rework each section, and then probably have the last couple days of the month to do the fine tuning and just really making sure everything is top notch and perfected. The polishing stage, as I tend to call it. I'm going to use just a very, very small amount of solvent today to finish blending the background and just doing like the final smoothing of it and all of that. Really, really small amount. It's more of like a dry brushing than like solvent blending, because if you just have a bit of the solvent still kind of damp or even just fuming on the brush, it's enough to smooth out kind of the harsher parts of the sketch, or the drawing, I mean. Hey there, Kenny and Jalma, good to see you. Oh, hey, what's up, Chrissy? Good to see ya. Hey Tessa and Wendy. Oh goodness, all of you are here today. Very happy to see you. Don't forget to give the live stream a thumbs up if you have been enjoying, this month-long series working on this portrait here. This self-portrait, to be a bit more exact. The other stream we were talking, I brought up the idea of starting a second channel where I like read books, more or less for just the idea of like listening, as opposed to an audiobook, in the sense that you usually listen to an audiobook because you're interested in the book, but there's books. What are they called? There's books that are like they're like royalty free books, but that's not the term for it. Public domain. That's what it is. Books that are in the public domain. I did some research, and I can read books that are in the public domain and monetize them, or at least upload myself reading them on YouTube without any legal, setbacks, any legal hurdles that I have to jump over. The only problem is the public domain books that I've kind of come across in my brief search, because it was rather brief. They're not. They don't seem very interesting. You have like the old people book, the War and Peace and Moby Dick, and some of those other ones that are super extra long and probably good stories, but I don't know. Maybe I should read those in particular simply because they're long and boring, and maybe people would find that relaxing. I don't know. I was hoping for something a little bit more accessible, in the sense maybe something a little more updated. So I'll keep looking, and if you guys have any ideas, I'm open to ideas. Finish the woodpecker? Awesome. I can't wait to see it. I'm sure it looks awesome. Yes, indeed, Kenny. That sounds like a good idea, Jalma. Yeah, get to sketching. What makes me want to read on YouTube? What makes me want to read is people like the sound of my voice, and I'm wondering if I can't set up a second YouTube channel to just kind of branch out my, I don't know, I don't even know what to call it. I don't know what to call it. I don't know. People like to listen to my voice, so I figured maybe I can market my voice. That's kind of what it boils down to be honest with you. It sounds like fun too. It's easy. It wouldn't be difficult to, you know, just read a chapter and then upload a chapter at a time of any particular book, something like that. Probably take, depending on, the density and length of the chapters, it'd probably take about 30, 40 minutes to read through the chapter. But one of the things I'll have to do is pace myself to my normal cadence of speaking, because when I read really fast. It drives my wife crazy. Drives me crazy that it drives my wife crazy, because I just want to read the book. But since English is her second language, I have to slow down most of the time. And you know how authors are, they always they always use a different type of English. You know, our written story book English is not the same as spoken English, so there's always new words that I have to define and explain. And then, of course, as soon as I explain it, she's like, "So it's just the same as this? Like, why is there more than one word?" And I try to explain that our story English is not the same as our spoken English, because authors like to make up words to describe things in more vivid stuff. Am I able to zoom in so we can see what you're doing, pretty please? Yeah, sure, I'll zoom in. I'm not really doing anything amazing. I'll be kind of flipping it. Let me just refocus. Since I'm working like on the background, and I'm just kind of like, I'm just doing a layer everywhere. I didn't think that anybody would want to see it zoomed in, so I had it zoomed out. But yeah, there. Now it's better. There, it's all better now. Yeah, I was thinking Jonathan Livingston was probably actually the first book that I was thinking of to read, but I don't think that it's in the public domain, so I don't think that I can legally read it. I suppose it doesn't really matter what book I read, as I think most people would probably end up listening for the purpose of relaxing or just flat out going to sleep. Because I can't tell you how many comments I get of people just saying that they play some of my live Pastel tutorials just to fall asleep. Like, they don't even actually watch it. They just listen to it to go to sleep, which is different. Like, it's not what I ever intended, and it's not like I speak any different on my live stream than I speak in person. So it's, yeah, just it's always kind of fascinated me a little bit, because I would have never marketed myself as a I don't know how do you market such a thing? What would you even describe the occupation to do that? I don't know. Yeah, I have no idea what to call it. So. Are you able to draw portraits freehand? Yes, I am. And would you be willing to make a video on some techniques? I have, actually, Justin. I have a few. I have a few live stream tutorials that I did, I think last year, maybe February, January timeframe. One is how to draw faces from every angle, and the other is how to draw hands. I raised my inflection because I think it's how to draw hands. But I talk about my scaffolding method to drawing, and the use of landmarks and anchor points to kind of measure out and where to put things. Essentially, if you know how to use the grid method, all you have to do is train yourself to create a grid mentally instead of physically drawing it. And if you can use the grid method mentally, what it means essentially is, like, I have the corner of my mouth here. I can create a vertical line to see that this is where it meets my eye. I can use a horizontal line to see that, you know, it goes in between my nose and my upper lip. And the same thing, I can use, like, the corner of my eye here and go horizontal and see that this is where my eyebrow is. So that's how I can kind of measure where I need to put things. And that's how I draw. And it's a skill. It's a skill that I would recommend, you know, practicing and getting familiar with and learning, because you can't color without being able to draw. I mean, I had the line art for my shirt here, but when it came to doing the shadows and stuff, you know, everything was colored. So how would I be able to draw in the shadows? And then same thing, like I have my neck, I had the lines for my neck where my neck end, but not where the colors change. So you still have to be able to draw just a color. There's a huge difference between drawing freehand without a reference photo and drawing with a reference photo. With a reference photo, you know, you have access to those landmarks and anchor points that I call, that's what I call them. I don't know if there's not a technical name for it. It's what I call them personally. Because I didn't learn the method from anybody. It's just something that I've kind of developed over the years of drawing. But drawing faces and things without reference, you know, just making a face up out of nowhere, that's a whole nother story. That will require a different set of skills than freehanding a portrait from a reference, just to make that distinction. Hey there, Sergio. Oh no, what happened? Didn't back up from the. Oh, you lost some recording work, doing the editing of your video. Sorry to hear that. Yeah, that can certainly be frustrating. I think I was just mentioning yesterday that my ballerina project that I did over on Patreon, you know, I don't know how it happened, but I lost the footage of me coloring the face and the hair, and I was like, well, I mean, that's the most difficult part of the entire project, so there's no reason to upload. There's no reason to upload a mini tutorial of the project if I can't even talk about the difficult section of the entire project. So I had to scratch the whole idea and the whole the entirety of the video, which was pretty disappointing since I really liked the project. And for those of you that don't know what I'm talking about, it's this project here. So my ballerina project that I did for a Patreon tutorial. You can still watch the live stream tutorial of the project, but I was hoping to do a shorter, condensed kind of narrated tutorial for YouTube, because that's part of the reason I wanted to upgrade my live camera, my live stream camera, so that I can record on it at a decent quality to make narrated tutorials again. But yeah, unfortunately it did not work out. Do you use circular motion when coloring skin, or do you find it to go down to inconsistent? I don't really do a constant circle motion everywhere. Sometimes I go side to side. Sometimes I kind of do a cross hatch. Really, if you just maintain the right amount of pressure, which everyone should know by now because I've repeated it a million times, is you should never be pressing harder than what is necessary for the color to show up. And as long as you never exceed that pressure, honestly, it doesn't matter what direction you color in. Because I'll go from doing like circles to ovals to lines going the other direction, and the consistency really comes from letting the color build up slowly over time, as opposed to adding excess pressure for the sake of the color to show up faster. It's that inconsistent pressure that really causes the most of all inconsistency in the coverage. So just keep that in mind. Pressing harder will not help you. In fact, it will just be painful to your hand. So let yourself slow down and just take your time instead, and you'll have a much better result. Speaking of camera, which one did I end up getting? I got the Canon AX. I don't even remember it now. Where is it at? I know the name's on it somewhere. I got the XA11. Canon XA11 camcorder. Yeah. Forgot the name. I always mix the X and the A and say AX, or I get it right not knowing it and say XA. But it's a really good camera. Since it has manual everything, manual color balance and focus and aperture and shutter speed, exposure, all of that. So it's really helpful shooting in low light situations, which is everything indoors without studio lighting. So it's very helpful to get a much better picture, and then there's a lot less noise because the ISO isn't cranked all the way up like it is on point and shoot type camcorders. I think the only possible upgrade that I could make to my overhead live stream camera is to first upgrade to a 4K camera so that I can record in 4K. That would be really great. But I won't do that until I get a new computer, which I won't do that until I buy a house. So there's a lot of stuff that I need before I need to make any further upgrades to my studio setup. Where your skin color is similar to the background, is there a temptation to give it higher contrast? Where is it similar? I don't see it. Well, I guess down here a little bit. While my arm isn't done, and well, actually none of my skin is done to be honest with you. Not a single part of my skin is even close to being done. And it will be much darker than what it is now. Just like the background's going to be darker than what it is now also. I'm just kind of doing the foundational colors of the background, and then I'm going to bring some of my other darker colors into it and some more grays. I think I need to maybe find another gray color to bring into the background. Because right now there's a bit too much color in the background, and I need to tone it down with some gray. But I'm doing this because this is like I'm kind of putting the toning colors beneath the actual color of the background, I guess. So I'm doing it a little bit reverse. Yeah, I have no urge in heightening the contrast anywhere on my skin or anything like that, because my skin isn't done in the first place. So, I mean, I hope you don't think that looks done. Does it have relay recording? It has multiple memory card slots. It has 2 memory card slots, and it does have relay recording so that you can record directly to your computer and you don't need to use memory cards at all. But I don't use that feature. It only records in 1080p, so you can record like 4 hours of video on a 32 gigabyte memory card. So that's more than what I need, because I don't live stream that long on a project that I would record like that. When I do my Patreon live streams, I keep it below 2 hours anyway. Usually try to keep it right at or right around 1 hour of a live stream for the Patreon streams. And so it's very easy. And what I do is after the stream, I transfer the file over to my computer. Let's see here. Let's maybe try this gray. This gray is a bit darker. Let me see how much darker it is. I'm trying to remember where I used this gray. I think this was my highlight gray for my shirt. No, what did I use this gray for? Not sure what I used this gray for. Maybe I used it for my ring. Maybe, I don't know. But it's darker and I need the background darker. The camcorders are so good when it comes to shooting videos, but just press on and forget it. Yeah. Do I like to start with the shadows and darker parts or the lighter parts of the skin first? Usually when I do the skin, and let's just go with the face. I usually do them in sections. So I start with the scleras of the eyes, which is the white part of the eyes. Then I do the iris pupil area. Then I do the outline of the eyes. And then I just do the skin around the eyes. Once I do the skin around the eyes, then I move up to the forehead. And my overall process for like the larger areas of skin, like on my neck, my forehead, even the cheeks, I guess, and then down here on my arm, is to find the color that is like smack dab in the middle. So if there's like super bright highlights, then I'll just avoid the highlights. But in my case, my lighting is very soft, so I don't have any really bright highlights to avoid. So what I do is I find this really just middle of the road value color that I can apply everywhere, and I just kind of do a solid base layer of that, and I might use it to kind of map out some of the shadows or the highlights where the color starts to change. But for the most part, I just do a base color of that one color. And then I will build up the values of my shadows and things like that with my darker colors. And that's kind of my process. So find the one color you can just safely use over all of the skin, and fill in the one area that you're going to work on. And I like to cut things off. So like I said, I do the skin around the eyes, and then I'll just go straight up to the forehead. It's usually a relatively flat area, and so I'll just use them like a mid-tone color, like somewhere around here, and then I'll just color the whole forehead. Then I'll grab like my darker colors, start putting in some of the shadows and some of the shapes. This is a bad example because there's still so much work that I need to do, and I need to go much darker in a lot of areas. But yeah, that's kind of the gist of it. I have several tutorials on doing skin and faces, and I even have a course on my website that takes you through the process, the entire process of coloring a portrait with colored pencils. So definitely check that out if you're interested in, getting better with your colored pencil portraits. I take you through in real time the entire process of a portrait. I think I use maybe 17 Prismacolor pencils, so you can, and I list them at the beginning of the course so that if you don't have those exact pencils, you can open stock order them one by one. And the course itself is only $10, and the pencils would probably run you about, I don't know, maybe around $10 or something like that. So very, very accessible course at any level. I give you the line art to trace, so you don't have to draw anything, because it's not a drawing course. It's a coloring course. So let's see. Is there any other questions here? What I mean by relay recording is it records from one memory card to another. Oh, yeah, it has that. My assumption was that the relay recording was that that you can plug it into your computer and record it directly to your computer, essentially using your computer as one big memory card, because you can do that. You can plug it right into your computer, not even have a memory card in the camera, and just record the video file directly to whatever folder you want to put it in on your computer. But yeah, it once one memory card is filled up on a video, it will immediately, without skipping a beat, it will just continue recording directly to the second memory card. How is the tooth of the paper on my project here? Well, the tooth on the background, so the background has more layers than anywhere else in the drawing, and I would say I still have plenty of room here. Even though this paper is very, very smooth. I mean, the Bristol plate paper is basically one of the smoothest papers you'd ever want to use colored pencils on. I'd say the only thing smoother than it is probably marker paper or drafting film. But I'm not having any problems getting my colors to show up the way that I want them to. And it's really, really smooth over here. Like, it's extra smooth to the touch. Yeah, some people don't like the smoother paper. It takes a little bit of control to get the colors to, you know, be what you want them to be. If you have a toothier paper, you have a little bit more leniency as far as correcting mistakes or, covering up something. on this paper you don't have as much room. But what was the other part? How many layers do I think I'll be able to apply? Man, the infamous layer question. The thing with layers is that what one artist refers to as a layer, another artist might not. I feel like for me, a layer stops when I blend with solvent, and then I start a new layer. And I feel like that's the best way for me to describe layering. But that's not actually what it could be in some other instances. I mean, what if you're not? What if I don't use solvent at all on a drawing? Is that just one large layer then? It's really hard to say because eventually you get to burnishing. And I would say with this paper, you get to the smoother stage faster than if you're working on watercolor paper or you're working on like a vellum paper that has a bit more grain to it. And I would, if I were to really, really try to give the papers like a layering grade by how many layers it takes to really fill it up and just completely make it smooth and wonderful. This would be one of the lowest, like 4 to 5 layers, like maximum that you would really need. And where I would say like a vellum paper would probably be closer to like the 7 layer range. So it takes a little bit more to fill in those deeper cracks in the paper. And then I would put like the watercolor paper or the pastel paper closer to like the 9-10 range where but I mean not all layers are created equal, right? Because if you apply a very, very light layer with like minimal pressure where the pencil just barely shows up, but you do that and then the color stops showing up, is that the same as a layer where you use like a medium pressure and you almost get the paper smooth? I don't think that it is. So those layers aren't really created equal, and so a layer measurement becomes completely subjective to what the artist defines as a layer. And so what I might define as a layer could be very different, and quite possibly is, from what you define as a layer. So it's really hard to answer that question with any objective way. My apologies for the long rant, which came from what seemed like a relatively basic question. But just trying to give you the most honest response that I could. If you go back, maybe you could look at how much I've put on the background. I mean, if you think about the last thing that I did to the background was actually smoothing it with a colorless blender, and I was using my arm's pressure weight. So I had it overhanded grip and I was doing this, and that's the weight of my arm. That is the most amount of pressure that I will ever put on a drawing. So yes, I've removed my hair. I think that's a safer way to say it on the live stream. And I grew a beard. I removed my locks because I really felt like it was just time. I didn't want it to do any more damage to my scalp and to my hair, because my family, the guys in my family do not lose their hair for a very, very long time, if at all. Even like my dad still has quite a lot of hair, and he's like 1,000,000 years old. So I didn't want my locks to be the cause that I am the only guy in my family that goes bald at the age of 35. So I thought it was time to just take it out, and it was really heavy. It was causing some neck pain, and you know it's not easy to sleep with that much extra stuff on your head. It's just flat out not easy. It's painful to get it maintained, so it was time. And the beard, honestly, the beard is just pure laziness. I just, you know, I didn't shave for like 2 weeks, and I was like, I still don't feel like shaving, but I don't want to go outside looking like I'm homeless, so I just trim it off my neck, and it's easy. So yeah, the beard will not be sticking around, and I'm not growing it. Like it's not getting longer. It's staying the same length. I use the trimmers to keep it at a length that has yet to bother me enough to just finally shave it off. But I feel like I'm obligated now to at least make it through the month of May, since I'm drawing a portrait of myself with the facial hair. I've always kind of liked the look. I at my sister's wedding was the first time that I ever had intentional facial hair, because you know as soon as I graduated high school, I was immediately in the Navy, and I at that time, 18 years old, I actually didn't grow a lot of facial hair. It was a little bit lighter, and it felt like it stopped at a certain point. But when you're in the Navy, you know, you have to shave. And so I was always clean shaven all the way through the Navy, with one exception. And that's when I took leave to go to my sister's wedding, and I kind of just let my hair grow out a little bit. And it was probably about this length actually at her wedding. And and I had it shaped just like this, and of course I had my military haircut, not the hair that I have now, a bit shorter, probably closer to what I have here, a bit shorter hair. But yeah, it's not my wife's favorite thing. She always calls it crusty. She always says that my face is crusty because I have a beard, and she doesn't like kissing it. So it's not gonna last much longer. It's not really stubble. I mean, it has a curl to it. I cut it pretty short. It's semi stubble, but it's just stubble sounds a lot less cool than beard. Well, shaving it is a pain. Trimming it takes no time at all. I have my facial hair is very like it's just so tough. I can't use a razor. Razors, no matter how new the blade is, and no matter how slick the shaving cream is, oh my gosh, it is so unbelievably painful. It's so painful. I used to be able to do it in the beginning part of my Navy career because my hair was still soft, like my facial hair was still soft, and it was mostly blonde. You know, it didn't look like anything. But about 3 years into the Navy, I could no longer use a regular razor and blade. I had to use an electric shaver because the blade just it doesn't even cut the hair. It just rips it out, and it's so painful. I need one of those. I need one of those straight razors. Maybe I could get away with something like that. Never never looked for one in the store, but yeah, it's a bit too painful. Now that I have the full base layer nice and burnished down, I'm just going to come through with some of my shading colors to darken up the background in some certain areas. And I'll probably blend it out with solvent and do some more toning and shading and all of that stuff. This is actually the same gray that I'm using in my shirt. So I'm using it in the background also. It makes it easy. I can apply this color without any regard to the edges around my shirt, since it's not going to ever come closer, or it's not ever going to come close to as dark as my shirt is. So it makes it really easy to kind of fill in the edge. And then I'll use my brush around the edges to be a bit more precise, to keep the colors from bleeding into one another and looking bad. Yes, my skin is very sensitive. I'm trying to keep this in the camera. It's hard, all zoomed in and stuff. You guys want you want the microscopic view of the project. I've heard of the A&W restaurant before. What that brings up a fun topic. What are some of your guys' favorite restaurants? If I had to if I had to choose a restaurant, and let's say I get a choice, I get to choose the restaurant that I've ever experienced in my life, whether or not it's still open or not is irrelevant. My favorite restaurant, I think I'd have to go non-vegan too. So I'll go all the way back. I'll go all the way back and think about which restaurant was always like is just something that I wish that I could experience again, or is just my all-time favorite restaurant. You know, oddly enough, I think I'm gonna have to go with a non-vegan restaurant, and I only got to eat there once, but anytime I think of restaurants, anytime I think of like when my experience at a restaurant was just the best, and I think I'll probably have the memory for the rest of my life and always talk about it like I am now. It was actually when I was in Singapore, Kenny. So you might actually be able to still go to this restaurant. Now, granted, this would have been 11 years ago, so who knows whether or not it's still open. But there's this Japanese restaurant in the middle of Singapore. I can't tell you exactly where it's at, called Sakura. and it's a Japanese restaurant. And I have no idea how expensive it is. I think it was. I have no idea. I'm not even going to say a price because I really have no idea. But it's a Japanese buffet restaurant, and they have a noodle station where you can get, like, whatever noodle cooked in front of you. They have like a teriyaki. What is that thing called? What do they do? Like a Mongolian barbecue type station. They have entire buffet of sushi, like everything that you can think of. And they even have this section of ice cream where they have the most obscure ice cream flavors. When I was there, I had corn flavored ice cream that actually had cooked corn in it, and it was delicious. And I had my all time favorite ice cream. My favorite ice cream of all time is green tea ice cream, and that is where I first came across green tea ice cream, and it was just the most delicious ice cream that I've ever had. And to this day, I have yet to find a green tea ice cream that can compare to the memory that I have of that green tea ice cream. And yeah, it was my favorite restaurant for sure. It was my favorite restaurant. I was actually telling my wife not too long ago. I think I was telling her the story of this restaurant. But I told her that when I was on deployment and I was traveling, going to Singapore or Thailand and all these other places, I told her, I was like, you know what, I I'm perfectly happy with the food that I eat now, being vegan and not eating meat and all of that stuff. But I'm actually glad that I wasn't raised vegan so that I could have experienced that restaurant without any regard to the food that I was eating. I would say in this story, ignorance really was bliss at that time, because it was a really great experience. It was definitely one that I'll always have with me. But yeah. Oh, you have heard of it. Yeah, they've probably, I'm sure they've made changes in the past 11 years, but that's cool that you know which one I'm talking about. Yeah, that's really cool. The other live stream, Kenny, that we were talking about. I was talking about possibly going back to Singapore. I'm the more I think about it, the more I think I might. Maybe this coming winter, I'll just surprise my wife with some time off and a trip to Singapore. I'll have to look at plane tickets and whatnot, because I'm actually not sure how far Singapore is from here. I know it's pretty far. I know it's I know it's pretty far from here, but it would be really nice to go and see the country again. See the country in a completely different way now that I'm vegan, and you know, have to explore and find food to eat, different food to eat. Probably won't be going back to Sakura, but maybe I could go back, get some veggie ramen or something along those lines. That could always work. Yeah, Singapore was like the one place that I visited in the Navy that I always wanted to go back after the first time being there. Thailand, not so much. That one, that was not a place that I was like, oh man, I can't wait to go back. But leaving Singapore, I was like, you know what? I definitely want to come back here again sometime. So I might just have to do that. Might just have to do that. Hopefully business will be good this year for me, so I can make that trip happen. Because that'd be really cool. Was my wife vegan when I met? When we met in person for the first time, yes. When we started talking online, no. She was vegetarian. She like transitioned into vegetarian, and then she started talking to me, found out I was vegan, and she eventually just transitioned to being vegan. Uh, she's she's still like she's still 100% vegan, but she's a lot less hardcore about it than I am. And let me define what I mean by hardcore. Like I'm vegan, like I choose to be vegan and I will not do anything else. Like I won't tolerate leniency in any way towards myself. So there's no, for me, absolutely zero, not a chance that I would ever cheat on my lifestyle restrictions. I never have, I never will. It's just my principles that won't allow me to do it. But my wife, she hasn't cheated per se, but there was one time that it was like her birthday at work, and her boss brought a cake, and she didn't want to be disrespectful, so she did have a piece of cake, and of course it was not a vegan cake, but it's a thing, you know. People bring cakes that they work with, I guess. But yeah, so she has some leniency, but like that's one tiny example. Other than that, like inside our house, no way. I wouldn't I wouldn't let I wouldn't let anybody bring non-vegan stuff into where I live. That's not an option. So outside of my domain, I have complete leniency towards others. Like I don't care what you eat, it's fine. Like I don't hold it against anybody. But the moment you cross my threshold, your options of what you're going to eat are limited to exactly what I will eat. So that's that's about the only extreme that I have with my lifestyle, is that you can't bring stuff that I won't eat into my house. But that's about it. You know, there's been some difficult moments, you know, where I might like go over to somebody's house or something like that, and they have no idea I'm vegan, and they'll cook food, but there won't be anything for me to eat. Yeah, sometimes that's a pain, but it rarely ever happens since I don't have friends and don't do anything, don't have parties. So I think that's probably the worst part about being vegan, is going over to somebody else's house, because they If they're not vegan, then it can be rather painful. Because as much as I liked to talk about it, like especially during the live streams, every single time we talk about food, every single time, okay? I'm gonna stop after this. I don't even know what I was gonna say. I'm just gonna stop talking about it. I just, I like to talk about it. But I'm not one of those people that introduces themselves and immediately lets you know, like like I'm special or something. That is one thing that I don't do, but I do it on my channel because I do what I want on my channel. You guys are voluntarily here, okay? So I'll talk about it. Let's go with a little bit of blue. Do I want blue? I think I want more green. I think I'm going to go more green. I'm going to kind of change my background a little bit. So I'm just going to go, yeah, I'll go with more green. Do I have, but you have to also be sensitive to guests' food sensitivities as well? Oh, what do you mean? Yeah, I will look forward to arriving in Singapore also. Changi Airport, okay. Yeah, we'll do as much as we can. Yeah, and I wish that I was kind of joking, but I'm not. I'm not very good socially, so I don't go outside much. You guys are my friends. Honestly, I spend probably more time live streaming with you wonderful people than like any friend ever. So there's the face for you, Kenneth. I'm trying to keep what I'm working on in. Okay, I know you guys wanted me to zoom in, but hopefully you've gotten bored of seeing. So I'll stay this zoomed in, all right? Not zoomed in. So you can see two hands worth of the drawing. That way I'm always kind of in in the frame when I'm doing something. Oh, thank you, Anne. Yeah, I can assure you that if I were to ever invite somebody over to my house, I would be I would be conscientious of any of their potential allergies. But I find it much more their responsibility to inform me if I were to invite them over. If I were to invite somebody over that has an allergy to walnuts and they don't tell me, and they walk into my kitchen and have a reaction because I have a bag of walnuts there, that is much more on them than it is me. Because if I am invited over to somebody's house for dinner, actually this happened when my wife and I went and visited my family this past November. is that one of my old friends' mom asked to if they could take us out for dinner before we ever got there. It was like a month or 2 months before we were going there. And of course I said yes. I was very excited to see them again. And if I had said nothing and they were like, "Oh, let's go to the Outback Steakhouse," I would have been like, it would have been my fault that they planned to go to such a restaurant had I not given them relevant information to what choices we should probably make for the restaurant. And so that would have been my fault if that were the case, but that wasn't the case because I told them, oh, my wife and I, we don't eat meat and a bunch of other stuff. So we'll have to think of a restaurant that we can all enjoy. And any Mexican restaurant is acceptable. It's very easy. But yeah, so anyways, I will get off that topic. I'll get off that topic. I think the I think the problem with having friends for me is that I have all the free time like I want, and most people don't. And so it's like, well, when can you hang out? Oh, well, I can, I have the weekends off. It's like, no, like my wife has the weekends off. I like to be together on the weekends since during the week we don't get much time together. But gosh, it's so hard. It's so hard to like plan getting together, and it's just not me. It's like I don't plan to get together with people. I just want to be able to call you up and be like, "Hey, what are you doing?" Nothing. Sitting here being a bum. Oh, I'm gonna come over. Let's play video games. Like it's not like that as an adult anymore. That's what it used to be when I was a kid. It was just like, geez, half the time I wouldn't even call. I just show up, start knocking on the door, and if I knew them well enough, it wasn't even knocking on the door. I just walk in, and gosh, everybody is so private anymore. They're just they need you to plan it like 6 months in ahead of time, and it needs to be pre-approved by everyone's spouse and lawyer. Like hanging out is so painful that it's not even fun by the time you get to the hanging out part. It's just boring and awkward, and nobody ever has anything to say. They're just looking at their phone. You can't even have friends anymore. I don't even know what friends feel like. It's so frustrating. Everybody, everybody's so busy with their life that nobody ever finds time anymore to spend good time with their friends. I'm so envious if you have a really really good friend that you can just do whatever with. You don't have to call them up to hang out. You just text them and say, "Hey, I'm on my way over." And they don't care. And you just sit there and do stuff or go out and do something, and it's spontaneous. You don't have to plan it for 6 months to be able to do it. Sorry, I'm kind of ranting a little bit. You guys got me in the ranting mood, talking about all kinds of stuff. What's my proudest drawing? My my proudest drawing? I think my proudest drawing is my green tree frog that I did like 4 years ago. And the reason it is because that drawing, when it came to drawing, that drawing felt like the pinnacle of my skill at the time, which is a very rare feeling. It was something that, like, when I did it, I was like, I can't believe that I did this. Like, all the practice, all the time, all the dedication led up to this drawing, and for a long time it was like, I can't believe that I did this. And I don't feel like that anymore about the drawing. Like, I can certainly see mistakes now. I've progressed a lot since then, but I have to say that it's still my proudest drawing because it's the only time I've ever felt like that with a drawing. I'm got to reiterate that I'm specifically talking about a drawing, because my painting, when it comes to painting, maybe still my Beneath the Veil painting, but even that is a little not sure. So it's that uncertainty that I say maybe I haven't reached that point with painting, but I might with my oil painting that I'm working on now. That's a good question, though. Yeah, that's a good question. You do realize that yeah, I do. I know. Actually, it'd be incorrect to say that many use lard, because in fact most do not. But yeah, I am aware that that is a potential, which is why I always call and make sure that they don't. And I have yet to come across one that does. It used to be a common thing, but it's far less common now because that type of refried beans is more expensive, and most Mexican restaurants, they go the cheaper route and get the dried refried beans that you just add water to, which don't have lard in them. Either way, most of the food is not healthy anyway. You and one other YouTuber inspired me to buy and try pastels. I bought Dry Master pastels. Never heard of those. Just wanted to ask, do you have any tips on blending thin lines? Yeah, thin lines are pretty tough. Yeah, if you want to get like thin lines, you'll want to go more towards pastel pencils. That's going to help you get those nice lines. But depending on the shape of your pastel, you can use an edge. But yeah, I'm glad that I am among the the YouTubers to inspire you to try out pastels. That's very cool. Let's see. I think I'm ready to blend, and then after I blend, I can do some mild toning. Actually, before I do that, I do want to add a little bit more red to this. I want to make sure that I have enough pigment on there. There we go. And actually, let me just flip this around really quick. Smooth it out with a slightly less red color. There. Now it should blend very, very easily. I'm going to use my trusty number 8 round brush. And there's a tissue. Grab a piece of tissue so that I can dry my brush, because now, instead of having a wet brush, I want a completely dry brush. So using a paper towel or the tissue here, and I'm getting rid of all of the solvent in the brush, because I only want like the fumes, the smallest amount of the solvent to be on the brush, because otherwise I'll just end up wiping the pigment right off the paper. And instead I just want to smooth it. Can you see that? I actually got through this a bit quicker than what I anticipated. It's only just over an hour. I thought for sure I'd still be working on the layers. But once I smooth out the background, I'll do a final toning. Maybe I'll bring in another green. It just depends on how much that green shows up. I might grab another green. And then I'll bring in a little bit of red. And I think that's it. Yeah, I think that's all the color that I will be adding to the background. But now the background will be super smooth and good to go. You can call the background completely done after today. Is there a great difference between pastel pencils and colored pencils? Yes. In fact, the difference is so great that I don't even think that they are comparable. The techniques with pastel pencils and the techniques with colored pencils are pretty much uncomparable. I mean, pastel pencils are pastels, but with a wooden holder, and they're a little bit harder than normal soft pastels. So what you get is that they don't blend as far as normal soft pastels. So there's a lot more to compare between soft pastels and pastel pencils than there are colored pencils and pastel pencils. Pastel pencils are also really difficult to sharpen. Unless you're blessed with a Jacquard electric sharpener like I am. But even then you gotta change the blade pretty often. And the Derwent and Caran d'Ache pastel pencils don't fit in the Jacquard sharpener. but the Faber-Castell and Carbothellos do, which is enough for me. Because the Derwent pastel pencils are worthless, and the Caran d'Ache pencils are so well made that they can sharpen with just about any other sharpener. I don't know if I've ever gotten a colored pencil drawing as smooth as this background right here. Like it is like as smooth as glass. It is so smooth. Maybe if I tilt it, you can see how smooth it is? There, you can see like the reflection. See like the reflection of my hand. It's so smooth. It's best from this angle because I have that light there. I have my lights set up so that it prevents reflection into the camera, so it's really hard to show you just how reflective the surface is, but I can see the reflection of my finger, and yeah, I don't know if I've ever had a colored pencil drawing this silky smooth before. I don't know if the camera picks it up at all, but there's a little bit of kind of a graininess and some of the lines of the colored pencils you can see here. But as I go over it with my essentially completely dry brush here, it will slowly but surely remove that grain and remove the lines and just make it just very soft and gradiated, which is exactly what I want. It's nice to get rid of the halo kind of effect that was going on around myself here. So now all that's taken care of. So tomorrow, I think I will just keep working on the shirt. That will be the plan. Probably take me 2 days to finish the shirt. Tomorrow I'll be able to do, like, I'll be able to get the rest of the shirt looking like this, and then the next day I'll be able to spend the time toning the shadows and toning the highlights the way that I need them to be, to get it looking just right. What brand type of lighting do I recommend? To be honest with you, I can't really give you any recommendations for lights. There's a lot that goes into like studio lighting, and to be honest with you, I haven't really put any real effort into my lighting setup because I'm so limited in space. And so my overhead lights, I have two overhead lights, which is just, you know, what the room has. And I use a cool white light. So it's as neutral as possible. I use two of those lights. And then I have two LED desk lamps that are like movable, that I got off Amazon. They're USB powered desk lamps, and they're also white light, and so that's the entirety of my lighting setup, which is not really ideal. The reason it's not ideal is the desk lamps are too close to me. They're just too close to me. What more idealistic would be to have just a very nice ambient light. You don't want any direct light. Desk lamps are direct light. So the problem that I have is like this lamp that's in front of me is that the angle that I look at my paper, I have a nice glare right here for me looking at it because the light is bouncing into my eyes. It's not bouncing into the camera, which, you know, it's great for the live stream, but it's not real great to draw under. So I can move it and the glare moves. And glare affects, you know, the way that you see it. So that's kind of frustrating to work around. You know, sometimes I have to lean forward, sometimes I have to move back and down to get the light glare to get out of my sight. But the most ideal would be to have a bunch of ambient light. So no actual direct light. My overhead lights, they're direct light. It's a bulb, but it's direct light. The bulb is uncovered. It's not being diffused. And so that's what I'll be looking for in the future when I actually have a studio space and I have room to set up light panels. That's what I would prefer. I'd have like two box lights on either side and maybe one above, but they'd have diffuser so that all of the light is more of a glow rather than a spotlight. What what blending solvent do I use? I use Zestit blending solvent. It's still too much. If my paper shows that it's wet, it's too much solvent. I don't want to see any of that. I don't want to see the color of the paper change. I want the brush to be really dry, and I'd rather just work the area longer to get it to blend out as opposed to having too much solvent. Because like I said, at this stage, adding too much solvent will just result in wiping away the pigment because it's so smooth. They're now all in this area that I've spent that last 5 minutes blending out. Has no pencil lines or grain at all. It's all just very smooth and blended. I actually don't know if I'll even need to add any toning colors. I added my red and my green to either side, and now that I'm blending it out, let me just get a look at it. Yeah, I think I'll just let it be after I finish smoothing it here. I don't think there's anything that I need to add. It's a nice shade of green. It's not too green, and it's not too red. So I have the complements the way that I want, and then I have, you know, just a touch of the purple blue up here. So because you can't go from green to red. You can't blend those colors together because you just get brown, and I don't want brown. So that's why I went green blue to red, or green blue purple gray red. It's a little bit more of a natural transition as opposed to trying to go green to red. You could go green to gray to red, and that would probably work out. But I didn't want it to be too gray, so I went with blue. Blue is a more natural shadow tone anyway, so feel like blue would be more natural transition color as opposed to just any old gray. You've come to realize that Pastel Matte eats Prismacolors. I've never tried Pastel Matte with colored pencils. A lot of people actually just straight up use Pastel Matte for their colored pencil work. But I've never personally tried it. Alrighty, I think I can call the background done. It's very smooth. Maybe I can do a little bit more blending right here. This still feels a little rough right in this area. So just smooth this part out one last time. There. Yeah, I think that's better. Up there, looks like there's a little line right there. But yeah, I think I am ready to call the background 100% complete. Let me just smooth my red line one last time. I didn't spend a lot of time smoothing it. Yeah. I think that does it. Yeah, I'm going to call the background 100% done. So there's where we're at. That's where we're at. So the project is getting ever closer to completion. Tomorrow I'll jump back to the shirt and make the shirt look like this. Make the rest of the shirt look like the bottom part down here, where I have a nice thick layer. Once I have the shirt done, I mean, gosh, that actually, maybe I might need to take more than 2 days on the shirt, simply to stretch the project out to a month. I didn't think that I was going to finish early, that's for sure. I mean, for the first like 12, 13 days of this entire project, I felt like, am I going to be able to finish it in a month? But now that I have the background 100% complete, I feel like there's a lot less work that I need to do. So, yeah, I'll just take my time on the shirt. That's what I'll do. Take my time on the shirt, and then I'll get to the skin. I think what I'll probably do is the shirt, and then I'll get my arm done, both arms done, because there's still a little bit of layering that I should do on this one, even though there's just a tiny bit of my arm showing. But yeah, I think the arm was probably going to take 2 days as well. So that'll take us up to the 24th. That gives me 7 days. 7 days to work on the face, the neck, and the hair. I think that's good. Yeah. That is good. So right on schedule. That is going to be it for today, though, for sure. So thank you guys so much for coming by and hanging out. I hope that you enjoyed the live stream. Don't forget to give it a thumbs up. And if you're new to my channel, welcome. Don't forget to subscribe. I'll be streaming every day for the rest of this month. And if you have any questions, come back tomorrow. I'll be more than happy to answer them. But with that said, enjoy the rest of your Monday, and I will see you next time. Take care. Peace.